So I've always pretty much been a big horror fan, and especially in the 80s and 90s, those decades produced some of the best horror franchises, in my opinion. And one of those franchises being A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, that franchise, I'm sure everyone knows it. Freddy Krueger was pretty much iconic in the 80s and 90s. Everybody knew the brown hat, the red and green striped sweater, the glove with knives for fingers, that famous song he had that sounded like a nursery rhyme. Well, when I was growing up, I had to watch a Nightmare on Elm Street movie whenever I could get the chance. Whether it was on cable TV or if I was at a friend's house and they were playing it, or if I went to Blockbuster and I saw that cover art with Freddy Krueger on it, I just had to rent it. I had to watch it. These movies I found super interesting. But as I'm, growing up and getting older, I found myself coming back to two movies in the series especially. And those two movies are Part 3, Dream Warriors, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which would be Part 7, I guess. These two movies are what I consider to be the best sequels in the whole Nightmare on Elm Street series, with, of course, the first movie being its best on its own. But these two sequels, Dream Warriors and New Nightmare, are what I consider to be the absolute best. It's just that I like them both in different ways, so it's kind of like a toss-up for me. So I was thinking, what is the best way to kind of decide which one I ultimately like better? I'm going to break it down into 4 categories. And those 4 categories are costume, characters, plot, and kills. And in each category, both movies are going to get either a full point or zero point 0.5, half a point. And we're going to see which movies win which category and tally up all the points at the end and see who wins this ultimate sequel battle. Now, comment below which movie is your favorite and why. And I'm really interested to hear, because I think among fans that these two movies are regarded as, highly rated. And I'm just interested to hear your opinion. So let's get to it. So let's get to the dream world or the real world and start this showdown. First category, the costume. So to start off with the Dream Warriors costume, overall, I think it's a pretty good costume. Like, you have the classic brown hat, striped sweater, the glove with the knives for fingers. I think the detail on Freddy's face is pretty good, like with the makeup and all that. But the only problem I have is it doesn't seem overly scary, It kind of seems like he's more comedic, and for good reason. Like, there are some funny parts to this movie, but they're also terrifying. But I don't find his makeup overly scary or intimidating, and that's what I'm kind of looking for in my rating system. So given that, I give Dream Warriors costume a half a point, 0.5 for Dream Warriors. Now, moving on to New Nightmare's costume, I gotta be completely honest and come out and say it. This costume is my favorite in the whole series. I find Freddy to be super scary and intimidating in this. He has those big scars on his head, a menacing look on his face, his whole body posture and the way he's presented on screen. He's scary every time he's on camera. And, that's what gets me. He's super serious, scary, out to kill, out to hunt. This version of Freddy just does it for me, especially in the hospital scene. The green hat can look a bit goofy, but when he has that black trench coat on with the big black boots and he's on the side of the wall with Julie there, it's just so damn good and scary. I give this one a full point. New Nightmare, 1 point. Second category, the characters. Now, the Dream Warrior characters are super good. I find each character interesting in their own way. especially the group of teens that are in this psychiatric hospital, I guess. They're all written well and unique, and I personally cared for each one. And then you have Nancy returning, and she wasn't in part two. So her coming back was super interesting, and she seemed to have like a really big purpose in terms of being a leader for these group of teens and someone with experience that's fought Freddy in the dream world and in real life. So there was that. And then there was also the doctor slash psychiatrist that was there too. He seemed like he played a good role as well, because Nancy could confide in this guy, and this guy was doing the research on the computer about the hypnocell, which is really interesting because I believe in this movie is where hypnocell was introduced for the first time. You also have Freddy Krueger's sister, who's the nun that appears. And I didn't know that at first till I went online after. I was like, oh, I think they show like her grave, but I probably blinked and missed it, or totally missed it in general. But yeah, Freddy Krueger's sister is in it. And of course, Nancy's dad comes back as Lieutenant Thompson, and he's always a great character. So you have all these like different type of characters that are in there, and they're written so well that you care about each one of them. And Freddy in himself is awesome too. Like, he's off the wall, comedic, but he's also going to kill you and make it a good kill and meaningful. So you're never safe from Freddy. He could get you at any time. Yeah, Dream Warriors has a good character set all around. You care about each one. You're interested in each one and to see what happens. And I think that's an overall great job. So Dream Warriors, full point. Okay, so for New Nightmare here, we have a bit of an interesting dilemma, because are they really characters? Since this is a movie inside of a movie, you have real actors playing the characters from the movie. So it's like, what's going on here? But despite that fact, I think the characters are good, and this is why. I believe Heather Langenkamp does a great job all around here, and an even better job than Dream Warriors. She does, a convincing job at playing herself. And I really felt like, okay, this is the actress playing herself. Like, this is how she really is. Maybe because I was younger when I watched this movie, but it seemed really captivating to me. And the way she was playing herself, and she was kind of afraid of playing Nancy again. Like, oh, if I'm playing Nancy again, this means something's going to brew up, and I felt that anticipation with her delivery. And then there's Nancy's son, well, Heather's son, played by Miko Hughes, who starred in Pet Sematary also. And he does a pretty good job. Overall, he does a good job of, what he's written to do. I didn't find him overly captivating, but then again, he's a child actor, and he's pretty young, obviously. So I thought he did a good job at what he was doing, and that was fine. But what I found overly interesting with this movie was the appearance of director Wes Craven and actor of Freddy, Robert Englund. I found both of their presences in the movie super interesting. You had Wes Craven talking to Nancy in parts of the movie, and he was explaining, the movie, the tone of it, everything. And I felt like when Wes was speaking, there was just like a spooky underlying vibe to everything. Like, he was writing this movie to come true or something like that. I mean, I'm sure that's what they were going for, but I especially felt that. And then you had Robert Englund. Like, there was that part where Nancy calls Robert Englund on the phone because she wants to meet him. I think this was after her boyfriend or husband died, and she was feeling like she wanted to meet someone to talk to. And Robert's like whole mindset while he's on the phone with her was kind of distracted, and he was looking at this painting that he was doing. And it's just such an eerie vibe to it, because Robert was freaking out staring at this painting, and he's like, yeah, we could do that. I'll see you later. And he's just kind of like pushing her to the side. and he's looking at this painting, and then there's this slow pan to the painting, and it shows this demonic looking Freddy, which is totally scary as hell in my opinion. Even as like a grown man watching this, it's so scary. And it's like, is this like foreshadowing that Robert's going back into the Freddy role, or what the hell's happening? There's like so many questions in my head as this scene plays out. So I really enjoyed that basically. And then you have Freddy as the demon basically.
Miss me.
And like I mentioned earlier, he's super scary and badass. I really liked Freddy in this movie. Like, he's the scariest Freddy in all the Freddy movies, in my opinion anyways. The only thing is that he's introduced a bit late into the movie. Like, I think it might be like 45 minutes or even longer into the movie where he's introduced. So there is that, which is a bit of a letdown. But overall, the characters are really good in this movie, if you could call them characters. That's the conundrum, basically. So, given that, I'm going to give New Nightmare a 0.5 points in this category, but pretty good. Third category, the plot. So I really like the plot in Dream Warriors. Like, when the teens start to come together as a union and one, and that scene when they went into the dream world, all standing in the room together, and the powers slowly coming to surface. I found, at that moment, this is when Freddy is in trouble. It was the first time in the whole series where I felt like the antagonists had possibly a better chance at beating Freddy if they could all use their powers together and fight him and defeat him. So there was that. But then there was also Freddy being more badass than ever in terms of his kills. He was just so quick-witted and fast and fierce, to the point where, yeah, the teens got their powers, but Freddy came right back and said, I'm the real boss of this world, and I'm going to show you who's boss, basically. And that was cool. And like I mentioned earlier, I think this was the first movie which introduced Hypnocell. And that's a huge story arc, in my opinion. Like, to have a simple pill, pharmaceutical drug or whatever that you could take to stop your dreams, that utterly makes Freddy powerless. And I think that's like somewhat plausible, in real life too. They must have drugs that make you dream less, or, not dream at all. And yeah, it was just like a pretty cool thing, I thought. And I was surprised that they only used it in this movie, and I think Freddy vs. Jason. Like, those are the two movies in the series that only use Hypnocell. But it's a big story arc, and they implemented it really well in this movie. So, given all those things, I'm giving a full point for Dream Warriors for the plot. Now, I also really liked the plot of New Nightmare. And I know it's a risky thing to do to break the fourth wall inside of a movie, but Wes Craven did it in such a great way, in my opinion. Like, you get Heather Langenkamp, the introduction to her real life. Like, she's in this nice suburban home, has this nice suburban family, everything's good and cool. But her husband is a special effects guy on the set of this new movie, this new horror movie. And you start to learn about the script and the characters. And then Wes Craven is making this offer to Heather, and she's starting to have nightmares about this whole thing. And it's like this slow burn into madness. And you're getting like the revelation of, oh man, Freddy might be coming back into things. And it kept me captivated and engaged the whole time. And yeah, it just felt like this really good slow transition into like a supernatural force taking over. And I thought Wes did a great job at that, and it was done in a really clever way. Like, you had things slowly come true, like when Heather is on the phone and then she starts to think she's hearing Freddy's voice, and at first it's not Freddy's voice, but then eventually it is, and you get that classic tongue scene, and it's all kind of throwbacks to the earlier movies. and it's done really well. It's all shaped into this really kind of like realism fiction crossing over into one film, and they do a great job at it. And Wes Craven is like at his top here, doing this sort of thing. So given all that, like the realism mixed with the fiction all coming into one and feeling like this real set piece of a film mixed together, I got to give New Nightmare a full point for this. And yeah, New Nightmare, 1 point for the plot. Fourth and final category, the kills. All right, so we have come down to the kills, and starting off with Dream Warriors. In this film, the kills might be the most memorable and awesome of the whole series. I mean, you have that kill at the start where Freddy is taking that guy as like a puppeteer, and he's using his veins as the strings for the puppets, and he's in the clouds. I thought him in the clouds was like a badass shot. He like cuts the veins and the guy falls to his death. That was super cool and had me hooked in right from the start. And then you had that scene where he was fighting the rocker kind of chick. She had like a mohawk and a cool leather jacket, and she was like kicking Freddy's ass at the start. And Freddy was having his ass handed to him by that chick. But then eventually Freddy turns it around and he uses her weakness for his power, and he turns his knives into like drug needles. And then you see like on the girl's arms, like her pores start to open up. And then Freddy just injects her arms with the drugs or whatever. And potentially, I guess she dies from an overdose or something. And that was crazy too. And of course, I can't go on without mentioning the infamous TV kill. You have like the ever hoping actress inside the room. She's watching TV. She's like slowly nodding off. Then she pictures herself on TV and gets captivated by that. And then slowly the TV becomes Freddy. He grabs her, and then there's the line. Fuck the prime time, bitch! And then he smashes her TV into her face into the TV, and it's such an iconic scene. It's one of the best kills of the whole series. So given all that, I have to give Dream Warriors a full point for the kills. 1 point, Dream Warriors. Now, as great as a movie as New Nightmare is, I gotta say, it really lacks in the kills department. Now, we're gonna disregard that first opening montage that has some kills in it, but that was a dream Nancy was having, right? So we're gonna toss that to the side and say those aren't real kills. So the first real kill comes from Nancy's husband when he's driving home from the special effects set, and he's slowly nodding off at the wheel. Then you get Freddy's glove coming up from the seat, and it like hits him in the chest and claws him and kills him. I mean, that kill was pretty good, but we don't even fully see Freddy on screen. Like, you see the glove and it looks pretty cool, and it's a cool special effect, but you don't fully see Freddy. So that kill is pretty good, I would say, but not great. And then we have the other kill, which is in the hospital. And I found this kill really good. And I thought it was like a good callback to the first movie with Freddy like stabbing Julie in the back. And then he's slowly dragging her against the floor and then the wall and then the ceiling. And you see Freddy walking on the wall and the ceiling. It's just super cool visual. And that whole outfit, like I mentioned earlier, like Freddy in the trench coat and the big boots. And he has like Julie just all there bloody and dying. That was a really good kill, and it impressed me a lot. But one impressive kill, another kill was okay. I got to give New Nightmare 0.5 points here. Half a point for New Nightmare in the kills department. All right, so that about does it for the sequel showdown. In terms of categories, Dream Warriors takes the characters and the kills. New Nightmare takes the costume. In terms of the plot, it was a tie, so that's a toss-up. And in terms of total points out of 4, Dream Warrior scores 3.5 out of 4, and New Nightmare scores 3 out of 4. So the winner is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. And yeah, I gotta say it's a tried and true classic. I do really like New Nightmare, but I find myself going back to Dream Warriors just a little bit more. Maybe it's like the comic relief and the 80s vibes and the nostalgia. But New Nightmare is a great film in itself, and sometimes I prefer watching it instead of Dream Warriors. But in this showdown, Dream Warriors has taken it 3.5 out of 4, and New Nightmare is 3 out of 4. So that about does it. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment down below what you think and how you would score things, and what's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. It might not even be Dream Warriors or New Nightmare. You might have a completely other two favorites than I do, which is fine. I'd be interested to hear it. But yeah, thanks for watching. I enjoyed making this video. Hope to make more to come. I'm a huge horror fan, like I said. I've pretty much been watching like a horror movie per night in September leading up to October. I might increase that watching. We'll see what happens. But yeah, happy Halloween season, and I'll see you next time. Peace.